this is a perfect place to talk about it because all of us are now consequential strangers. We have to mingle a little bit and we'll know a little bit about each other. And basically, consequential strangers are all the people outside of your family and close friends. So it's everybody from your mailman to your hairdresser to John and Carol who are teaching us about WordPress and how to optimize your website. It could be your accountant, it could be your doctor, it could be your lawyer. We can't be close to everybody. And so these are the people that we could call them acquaintances. And what the research tells us, and what you read about in my book, is that it's really, really important to have consequential strangers in your life. We all know it's important to have someone you love. But our loved ones know what we know, they think the way we think. And consequential strangers can teach us things and introduce us to novelty and give us ideas that wouldn't occur to us and wouldn't occur to our loved ones. There's incredible research about how they keep us healthy. One study, for example, they took a bunch of people who were paid about $800 apiece for the privilege of being given nose drops with a cold virus in them. And they gave these people a cold through these nose drops, and they made them, they were in quarantine in a hotel in Pittsburgh. And they weren't allowed, which was very interesting to me, that they weren't allowed to get closer than 3 feet to one another because then they might catch from somebody else as opposed to just catching from whatever they got in the nose. Well, they had these people in isolation for about 5 days, and they waited to see who got sick and how sick they got. Now, some people didn't get a cold at all, and some people got really sick, and the difference, of course, is their immune system. Well, they looked at their histories, they looked at they had to be healthy to be participants in this study in the first place. So they didn't come in with any diseases. They looked at their emotional states, were some people more nervous than others. But the interesting thing is they also looked at their social connections. They gave them a questionnaire, and they said, how many of these types of people have you seen or spoken to in the last 2 weeks? So the types of people included spouses and in-laws and parents and children, but it also included people that they knew from volunteer organizations, people they knew from work, people they knew from school, and these are all consequential strangers, they're acquaintances. It turns out that the people who had 6 or more different types of contacts over the last 6 weeks had 4 times less likely of getting a cold than people who had 3 or fewer. So what that says, and what there's a lot of research that says this, is that it's really important not just to have intimates in your life, but to have people who you can just play tennis with, or learn a new skill from, or get some new information. Think about, I don't know how many of you work in offices? Okay. Your co-workers, people that you go out to lunch with, they're not the kind of people that you're necessarily going to invite home for Thanksgiving dinner, but you enjoy lunch with them. And the interesting thing is that you sometimes share with those people some very intimate details of your life. And that's another interesting phenomenon about consequential strangers. We tend to think our intimates are who we share with. But really the research shows that we can share, there's a famous psychological phenomenon called strangers on a train. Have you ever had the experience where you travel on a train or an airplane, you're sitting next to somebody, and you have a 2-hour trip with them, and you end up telling them something really intimate? You talk about your boyfriend or your girlfriend, or you talk about how aggravating your mother-in-law is, and you've never told this to your spouse. And this happens to all of us. It's called the strangers on a train phenomenon. And my book is all about the different kind of ways that consequential strangers really enrich your life. They introduce us to things that we can't get introduced to any other way. And in terms of our careers, consequential strangers are extremely important. Many studies have shown, in fact, the underpinnings of this book is a study that was done in 1973 called The Strength of Weak Ties. And what they found was, most people think if you're out of work and you need a job, you ask the people that are closest to you. Do they know anybody? Who could they introduce you to? But what this sociologist found was that jobs don't come from the people who are close to us, even though those are the ones that are most likely going to help us. They really come from former bosses, people you know at the gym, people who are consequential strangers that you're not that close to. And again, it comes back to this: the people in our lives know what we know.